Ever feel like you're an NPC in your own life? Like you're just there in the background while everyone else gets to be the main character? I 27M, can't believe I'm finally typing this out, but I need to tell someone who might actually understand. Let me cut straight to the moment everything changed. Picture this, graduation day, Stanford University. I'm standing in my cap and gown, the result of 4 brutal years in computer science, a 3.9 GPA, and countless sleepless nights. The seats are filling up with proud families. But mine? Empty. My girlfriend Megan was supposed to meet me at 8:30 a.m. At 9 o'clock, still no show. I call her, and there's this background noise of laughter and chatter. Hey, where are you? We need to leave. Her response. Oh. I'm at Jenna's new place. Something came up. Your mom asked me to help them move. I thought you knew. At Jenna's new place. On my graduation morning. My girlfriend was helping my golden child sister, 25F, move instead of attending my college graduation. That's when everything I'd been suppressing for years finally clicked. Let me rewind a bit. My sister Jenna has always been the golden child. Not in the occasionally gets special treatment way. We're talking about a complete, systematic prioritization that started when we were kids. My parents basically decided early on that she was the one worth investing in, and I was just there. At 10, I won this massive state-level programming competition. It was a huge deal, the kind of thing that gets kids fast-tracked into advanced programs. I ran home with my medal, bursting with pride. Found my parents fussing over Jenna's art project. I stood in the doorway for 5 full minutes before they even noticed me. When I showed them the medal, my dad just said, "That's nice," and went right back to helping Jenna with her project. That night, I sat in my room staring at that medal, wondering why I even bothered trying. At 14, I deliberately didn't tell them about a major school presentation. Just wanted to see if they'd ask. They didn't. Same week, Jenna mentions some basic history poster project, and Mom stays up until 2 a.m. helping her glue pictures onto cardboard. When I turned 16, Dad made this huge deal about teaching me to drive. Kept talking about how it was this father-son tradition. Then Jenna needed help with an art exhibition, and suddenly Dad had 0 time for driving lessons. My Uncle Rick ended up teaching me instead. Dad didn't even seem to notice. I used to vent to Megan about this stuff, but she never got it. Come on, it's not that bad, she'd say. Your parents just love Jenna a lot. She's the youngest, of course they dote on her. Like I was overreacting. Like I wasn't watching my own family pretend I didn't exist. The pattern continued through high school. My high school graduation? They showed up 20 minutes late. I was already holding my diploma, standing on stage for the group photo when I saw them sneaking in the back like it was some casual lunch date they were running behind for. No photos, no cheers. Dad just whispered, Jenna's art show ran long. Cool. Guess her high school art show trumped my graduation. Fast forward to college. I busted my ass at Stanford, working part-time, maintaining that 3.9 GPA, networking at every opportunity. I did it all mostly on my own. For some stupid reason, I thought my college graduation would be different. Like maybe this major life milestone would be the one where they'd actually put me first. 2 weeks before graduation, I reminded my parents about the ceremony. Mom barely looked up from her phone, "We wouldn't miss it, honey." The day before, I sent a message to our family group chat, "Ceremony starts at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Parking gets crazy, so maybe try to arrive by 9:30. No response, but that wasn't unusual. So there I was, graduation morning. Getting dressed in my cap and gown, actually feeling nervous but excited. Then that call with Megan. You know what made it worse? The way she said it. Not surprise or guilt. Just annoyance. Like I was being unreasonable for questioning why my girlfriend was skipping my graduation for my sister's moving day. That's when it hit me. She had always been fine with this dynamic. Always fine with Jenna coming first. Always fine with my parents treating me like an afterthought. Even my girlfriend wasn't really on my side. So none of you are coming to my graduation? I asked, weirdly calm. Your parents said they might try to make it for the end, she said, like that somehow made it better. Try. Like my graduation was a dentist appointment they were squeezing in. I was about to take off my gown and skip the whole thing when my phone rang. Uncle Rick, my dad's older brother. Hey, kiddo, I'm outside your building. Ready to go celebrate that diploma? Uncle Rick had always been the one family member who actually gave a damn about me. He'd made serious money from some tech startup he sold years ago, and unlike my parents, he actually seemed to care about what I was doing with my life. Walking onto that stage, I scanned the crowd like an idiot, still holding onto some dumb hope that maybe they'd shown up last minute. Nothing. Just rows and rows of people hugging their kids, dads clapping their sons on the back, moms crying happy tears. Meanwhile, I'm standing there with my diploma in hand, the only person cheering for me being my uncle who technically isn't even obligated to give a damn. After the ceremony, Uncle Rick took me to this fancy steakhouse, the kind where they don't even put prices on the menu. When I walked in wearing my graduation gown, the staff actually applauded. Embarrassing, but kind of nice. I'm proud of you, kid, Uncle Rick said, lifting his glass. Computer science isn't easy, and you crushed it. You're going places, whether they see it or not. It's wild how much those words meant. Out of everything that happened that day, hearing my uncle say he was proud hit the hardest. For once, someone actually saw what I'd accomplished. Halfway through lunch, my phone starts buzzing like crazy. At first, I think maybe it's an apology that they realized how badly they screwed up. But no. Megan, where are you? Are you coming to Jenna's party after? Mom, sorry we couldn't make it, sweetie, but Jenna's apartment is so nice. You'll love it. Dad, let's do dinner next weekend to celebrate you. Next weekend. Because, wouldn't want to interrupt Jenna's big day with something as minor as my college graduation. I put my phone face down on the table. Uncle Rick sees my expression. Let me guess, he says, cutting into his steak. They're at a party? I nodded. He chews for a second, then shakes his head. Forget about them. Eat your steak. After we finished eating, Uncle Rick handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a business card for some guy named Mark at a tech company in Seattle. Consider it a graduation gift, he said. Mark's looking for fresh talent. He'll give you an interview if you want it. I stared at the check. That was more money than I'd ever seen in my life. Uncle, I can't. You can and you will, he said firmly. Look, I never had kids of my own. Let me do this for you. Take the money, take the opportunity, and get the hell away from people who don't appreciate you. I hugged him, trying not to get emotional in the middle of a fancy restaurant. Thank you. That night, I made my decision. I took a photo of me and Uncle Rick at the restaurant and posted it on Instagram with the caption, "Huge thanks to the only person who showed up for my graduation. At least now I know who actually cares about me." Then I turned off my phone. I didn't want to deal with any of their responses or excuses. We called Mark right then and there. Uncle Rick put him on speaker and introduced me. We talked for about 20 minutes about my projects, my experience, what I was looking for in a job. At the end of the call, Mark said, "How soon can you get out here for an in-person interview?" I looked at my uncle, who gave me a thumbs up. How about next week? Perfect. Rick, send me his resume and I'll have HR set everything up. The interview went way better than I expected. I flew out to Seattle, Uncle Rick paid for the ticket, wouldn't let me argue about it, and the company put me up in this nice hotel downtown. The office was super cool, one of those modern tech spaces with free snacks, standing desks, and all that stuff. Mark and I clicked right away. We ended up talking for almost 2 hours, way longer than scheduled. At the end, he was like, "So when can you start?" Just like that. Junior developer position, 6-figure salary, which blew my mind, plus relocation assistance. I accepted on the spot. The crazy part? I didn't tell anyone about it. Not my parents, not Jenna, and definitely not Megan. I just quietly started packing up my apartment, donated most of my furniture to Goodwill, and loaded what was left into my car. I kept my phone off most of that week. The day before I left, I finally turned it back on to tie up loose ends. Holy shit. 47 missed calls. 93 text messages. Voicemails from my parents demanding to know where I was, why I wasn't answering, how I could be so childish about missing one graduation ceremony. Megan's messages were the worst. She went from "please talk to me, I know I messed up" to "seriously, Ryan? You're ghosting me over this?" I said I was sorry to "I'm coming over tomorrow, we need to talk about this in person" to "your neighbor said you're moving. Where are you going? Call me." I didn't respond to any of it. Instead, I sent a quick email to my landlord explaining I was breaking my lease and that they could keep the security deposit. Then I got in my car at 5 a.m. and started the drive to Seattle. As I crossed the state line, watching the sunrise in my rearview mirror, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. Like I was finally escaping this life where I was always second best, always an afterthought. Uncle Rick was right. Sometimes you have to look out for yourself because no one else will. Update 1: the past 6 months in Seattle have been surreal. Remember that entry-level developer position I mentioned? Well, I just got promoted to team lead after successfully launching our new cloud security platform. My boss said it was the fastest promotion they've ever given, but honestly, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you're not constantly dealing with family drama. The office culture here is completely different from anything I've experienced. People actually notice when you do good work. Last month, I stayed late to fix a critical bug in our production environment. The next morning, our CTO personally came to thank me. Can you imagine? Someone actually acknowledging hard work instead of treating it as an expectation. I've started making real friends too. Not the superficial kind who ditch you for your sister's moving day, but people who actually show up. There's this group at work that goes rock climbing every Wednesday. I joined them a few months ago, barely able to climb the beginner routes. Now I'm tackling intermediate walls and planning a weekend climbing trip to Mount Rainier with them next month. My apartment overlooks Lake Union. Sometimes I sit on my balcony at sunset, watching the seaplanes land on the water, and it hits me: this is what peace feels like. No walking on eggshells, no competing for attention, no constant reminder that you're someone's second choice. The voicemails from my parents haven't stopped, but they've evolved in an interesting way. The first month was all anger: "This behavior is unacceptable, Ryan. How dare you disappear like this? You're breaking your father's heart." Classic guilt-tripping stuff. Month 2 shifted to bargaining: "Please, just let us know you're safe. We can work this out as a family. Whatever we did wrong, we can fix it." Month 3 was Jenna's turn: "Big brother, I don't understand why you're punishing everyone. Mom cries every night. Please come home for Thanksgiving." The latest messages are my personal favorite. They're trying to use Uncle Rick as leverage. "Rick says you're doing well at your new job. We saw your LinkedIn update about the promotion. We're so proud of you, son." Proud. Now they're proud? After spending my entire life making me feel invisible, they're suddenly proud because I'm successful? It's almost funny how transparent it is. Speaking of Uncle Rick, he visits every few weeks. We try new restaurants around the city, and he tells me stories about when he was starting out in tech. Last week, he mentioned that my parents have been pressuring him to share my address. His response: "Not my information to give. But I can tell you he's doing better than he ever did with you. The company's going well. I'm leading a team developing a new security protocol that's getting attention from some major players in the industry. My team actually listens to my ideas, implements my suggestions. No one here knows about my family history, about being the forgotten child. Here, I'm just Ryan, the guy who ships good code and brings donuts every Friday. I've started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee meetups with people I match with on apps. It's different this time. I'm not trying to prove anything, not looking for someone to validate my existence. I'm just meeting people, having conversations, seeing where things go. One of the rock climbing group, Sarah, asked me out last week. We're getting dinner tomorrow. It feels normal. Healthy. The funny thing about distance is how it clarifies things. Remember how I used to think there must be something wrong with me? That I must have done something to deserve being the family afterthought? Now I see it wasn't me at all. They created a dynamic where one child was the star and the other was the supporting cast. I just refuse to keep playing that role. Uncle Rick says success is the best revenge, but I don't even think about revenge anymore. I'm too busy building a life I actually want to live. My code commits have doubled. I'm learning new frameworks, contributing to open source projects, making a name for myself in the dev community. Not to prove anything to them, but because for the first time in my life, I'm doing things for me. Last night, I got a text from my old college roommate. Apparently, Megan's been asking around about me, trying to figure out where I am. He said she's dating one of our mutual friends now. You know what's crazy? I read that text and felt nothing. No anger, no jealousy, just complete indifference. 6 months ago, that would have hurt. Now it's just a footnote in someone else's story. I know some people might think cutting off family is extreme. But they're your parents, they say. Family is forever. Here's what I've learned: family isn't about DNA. It's about who shows up. Who sees you? Who celebrates your victories instead of making them about themselves? Uncle Rick asked me yesterday if I ever think about reconciling with them. I told him the truth, I don't. Not because I'm angry anymore, but because I finally understand my worth. I'm not interested in negotiating for a place at a table where I was never welcome in the first place. The sun's setting over Lake Union as I write this. There's a calmness in my life now that I never knew was possible. Tomorrow, I have a team meeting, then climbing with the group, then dinner with Sarah. Simple things, normal things, but they're mine. And for once, nobody can make me feel like I don't deserve them. Update 2, just when I thought my life was finally drama-free, my father decides to drop a bomb. Yesterday morning, I got a LinkedIn message from him. Super formal and professional. Ryan, I hope this message finds you well. I've been following your career with interest. Very impressive work with the AI security protocol. I was wondering if we could connect sometime to discuss potential collaboration opportunities and your inheritance. Hope to hear from you soon. Inheritance? I actually laughed out loud reading that. My parents aren't wealthy by any stretch. Dad has his small accounting firm and Mom does part-time real estate. They have a nice house in the suburbs and take one vacation a year. That's it. I showed the message to my team lead during lunch. He nearly choked on his sandwich. Dude, potential collaboration opportunities? That's corporate speak for, I need money, right? The best part? My father, who couldn't spare time for my graduation a year ago, has apparently viewed my LinkedIn profile 27 times in the past month. Talk about desperate stalking. I replied with 2 words, not interested. That opened the floodgates. Within hours, my work email was bombarded with messages from every possible family contact. Mom started texting about how I was throwing away my future and how they'd always planned to help me financially. Dad sent this long-winded email about family responsibility and how I was being childish and ungrateful. The real kicker came from Jenna. She reached out on Instagram, "Hey, stranger, long time no talk. Look, I know things are weird with us, but Mom and Dad are really struggling right now. Dad's business is failing, and they might lose the house. I know you're doing really well, congrats on that by the way, and I was wondering if maybe you could help them out? They're too proud to ask directly. Too proud. More like too manipulative. They're not asking directly because they know they have no right to ask at all. Here's where it gets interesting. I did some digging. Being in tech has its perks. Dad's accounting firm has been losing clients left and right. Turns out, he made some questionable decisions, cutting corners to maintain their lifestyle while funding Jenna's artistic pursuits. Several of his major clients have switched to larger firms that offer better rates and, actual ethical practices. Uncle Rick filled me in on the rest. Apparently, Dad's been borrowing money from everyone he knows, trying to keep his business afloat. Mom had to sell her car. Jenna had to move back home because they can't afford to support her creative journey in New York anymore. The irony? My latest project just got featured in Tech Weekly. Our security protocol is being implemented by several major companies, and I'm being headhunted by top firms in Silicon Valley. My team just doubled in size, and I'm now managing a 7-figure budget. Last week, I bought a lakefront condo with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that makes Seattle look like a postcard. The down payment was more than my dad's annual income. Not that I'm counting. But here's the real twist. Remember Sarah from the climbing gym? We've been dating seriously for 6 months now. She's a software architect at a competing firm, brilliant, kind, and most importantly, she sees me. Last night, over dinner at my new place, she looked at the messages from my family and said something that hit home: they don't want to reconcile with you. They want to reconcile with your success. She's right. They ignored me when I was achieving things on my own, the programming competitions, the scholarships, the internships. Now that I'm financially successful, suddenly I'm worth their attention? I decided to have some fun with it. I updated my LinkedIn profile with details about my latest project, added some photos from tech conferences where I was a speaker, and included a mention of my upcoming TED Talk about innovative security protocols. Let them see exactly what they missed out on. The responses were immediate. Mom's texts turned from guilt-tripping to bragging about her successful son to her friends. Dad's LinkedIn messages became more desperate: son, I've always known you had potential. Let's discuss some business opportunities. Through all this, Uncle Rick has been my voice of reason. Kid, he said during our weekly dinner, sometimes the best revenge is letting people watch you succeed from a distance. I've muted all their messages but haven't blocked them. Why? Because every time they see my success, every time they realize what they lost, it's a reminder of their own choices. Sarah and I are planning a trip to Japan next month. I'll be speaking at a tech conference there, and we're turning it into a vacation. Meanwhile, according to Uncle Rick, my parents are trying to refinance their house to keep Dad's business afloat, and Jenna's art career has stalled completely. You know what's funny? A year ago, this would have felt like revenge. Now, it just feels like life. I'm not succeeding to spite them. I'm succeeding because for the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first. The other day, one of my junior developers messed up a major code push. Instead of berating him, I sat down with him, helped him understand the mistake, and showed him how to fix it. He looked at me like I was some kind of saint. My last boss would have destroyed me for this, he said.
Yeah.
Well, I replied, I learned from experience what it feels like to be treated like you don't matter. Not going to pass that on. Maybe that's the real inheritance I got from my family, a perfect example of how not to treat people who depend on you. Life's good. Really good. Not because they're struggling, but because I'm thriving. And the best part? I did it all without them. Update 3, well, it finally happened. The confrontation I knew was coming but didn't expect to happen in my own living room. I was working from home last Thursday when my doorman called up. Mr. Walker, there's a couple here to see you. They say they're your parents. My heart started pounding. I knew this day would come eventually. They're quite insistent, sir. The woman is getting upset. I sighed. Send them up. When I opened the door, I barely recognized them. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years, gray hair, deep wrinkles, wearing a suit that had seen better days. Mom was thin in a not healthy way, wearing clothes that used to fit but now just hung off her frame. They both had this look I'd never seen before, like cornered animals. Ryan, Mom whispered, reaching for a hug. I stepped back, keeping the door half closed like a shield. How'd you find my address? I asked. Dad cleared his throat. Rick told us. Said it was time we talked. I made a mental note to call Uncle Rick later and ask what the hell. But I let them in, watching their faces as they saw my place for the first time. Their eyes got huge, taking in the lake view, the designer furniture, all of it. You've done really well, Dad said, sounding weirdly jealous and proud at the same time. What do you want? I didn't offer them a seat. They looked at each other like they were deciding who would speak. Mom's eyes got all watery. We miss you, Ryan. It's been 2 years. Whose fault is that? I shot back. Dad sighed. We know we screwed up. Missing your graduation we should have been there. We've had a lot of time to think about everything, how we treated you growing up. So what changed? The articles about me? Seeing my success? Because you didn't care about understanding until I started making good money. Dad's face got red. That's not fair. Seriously? You're here because you need something. Just tell me what it is. Money, Mom wiped her eyes. Your father's business is failing. We've lost everything. We had to sell the house, and Jenna. Just then, my front door opened. Sarah walked in, stopping short when she saw the scene. She knew exactly who they were from all our talks. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. She started. No, stay, I said. Sarah, meet my parents. They were just leaving. Mom's eyes fixed on Sarah's left hand, specifically, the engagement ring we'd picked out together last month. Her face crumpled. You're engaged? We didn't even know. That's the point, I said quietly. You don't know me anymore. You don't get to know me anymore. Sarah moved to stand beside me, her hand finding mine. The gesture wasn't lost on my parents. We're your parents, Dad said, his voice getting that authoritative tone he used when I was a kid. Family helps family. I actually laughed. Family helps family? Where was that attitude when I needed you? Where was that when you picked Jenna over me every single time for 20+ years? We made mistakes, Mom was practically begging now. But people change. We've realized what's important. No, I shook my head. You haven't changed. You're still just looking out for yourselves. The only difference is now you need me instead of the other way around. I walked to the door and opened it. Time for you to leave. Dad's face got hard. That's it? You're turning your back on us when we need help? After everything we did for you? Mom added. That was the last straw. What exactly did you ever do for me, Dad? Seriously, name one time you put me first. One time you chose me over Jenna. He opened his mouth, froze, then closed it again. Couldn't think of a single example. Yeah, that's what I thought, I said quietly. Get out. After they left, Sarah hugged me tight. You okay? I thought about it. Yeah, actually. I really am. That night, Uncle Rick came over. We sat on my balcony, watching the sunset over Lake Union. Sarah brought us beers and joined us. Sorry about giving them your address, kid, he said. Thought it might give you closure. I nodded. It did, actually. Seeing them like that. I don't even feel angry anymore. Just free. To freedom, Sarah raised her bottle. And to our wedding next spring. Uncle Rick grinned. Speaking of which, I'd be honored to be your best man, if you want. I felt something catch in my throat. Really? Kid, you're more of a son to me than your father ever deserved. Later that night, after Uncle Rick left and Sarah had fallen asleep, I sat looking at the city lights. 2 years ago, I was that invisible kid desperate for his parents' attention. Now, I'm a successful tech executive, engaged to an amazing woman, with a future brighter than I ever imagined. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. My parents might have lost everything, but I've gained everything that truly matters. Life is good. Really, really good. And I didn't need their help to make it that way.